Hello, everybody. I'm going to be doing my speech on the educational system in the United States. Recently, the education of American students has remained stagnant, while other countries continue to show improved and evolving educational systems that provide its youth with ways to advance and promote growth to its youth. America has always been a country that prides itself in its ability to raise up its youth to be future leaders in the intellectual world. However, standards of education have dropped in America, and the level of learning for these students has remained the same. It is not fair for the future generations of the United States to continue to receive education that is not prioritized, as our country preaches equal opportunities. As citizens of the United States of America, we have the power and responsibility to push for changes in the educational system. I believe that it is the responsibility of the government to focus more on the educational system in America. We can't put this on the back burner, and if we do, we're going to constantly be outperformed by other countries. I'm going to talk about the lack of support to the educational system, the reasons why it receives so little help, and the solution to the problems we face. The United States is losing track of how important the education system is to the core of the country. The United States of America's education system has slowly been falling behind other countries. We can see this in an article written by Kimberly Amadeo on thebalancemoney.com. According to her article, she states the U.S. placed 11th out of 79 countries in science when the test was last administered in 2018. It did much worse in math, ranking 30th. Now, for a country that prides itself in its education, I don't understand why we're placing so low in these tests. The United States spends much less of its funding on education compared to other countries. In an article, in an article by Melanie Hansen on educationdata.org, at 4.96%, the United States spends a smaller percentage of its GDP on education than other developed nations, which averages 5.59% of GDP in educational spending. So basically what this means is that the United States is not spending a good percentage of its funding on the educational system compared to other developed nations. To understand the root of this problem with the educational system in the United States, we have to look at the faults of the government in the educational sector. The cause of the United States' lack of ability to keep up with other countries in the educational sector is partly because the government is losing its focus on education. In an article on HeraldNet.com, Haven Borgias states the military budget is 11%, which is $795 billion, while spending on education is about 4%, $297 billion. It's obvious that our government is spending a lot more on other sectors, primarily military, in comparison to the educational sector. Now, another reason the United States has not been able to keep promoting educational growth like other countries in the United States is because it's not focused on making sure that students are motivated to study as hard and to perform as hard as other countries. Kimberly Amadeo again states the IMD World Competitiveness Center reports that the U.S. ranked 10th in its 2020 competitiveness report after ranking first in 2018. And this was written in her article on thebalancemoney.com. Again, we're getting outperformed by other countries, not only in educational standards, but obviously in competitiveness as well. And if our students aren't motivated and willing to perform as hard, then we're never going to rank higher, and we're never going to be able to have youth that's more willing to learn. So even though it seems like the United States will never be able to put more focus onto the educational system, there are compromises that can be made that may be able to boost this sector. One solution the United States can use to solve the problem with the educational system is pretty simple. The government needs to cut spending on other sectors that receive more love to give funding to the educational system. In a policy research brief by the Northwestern Institute for Policy Research, it is stated that the estimated benefits of increased school spending justify the higher spending. They go on to state, For every additional dollar invested in schools, there is a return on investment of $2 in additional future earnings by the student. Increased funding towards education can result in higher graduation rates and incomes, which will stimulate the economy and provide return benefits for the government. So not only is it good for the government to provide funding for the educational sector for its students, but it will actually benefit the government in the long run. Another solution that the United States could use to solve the problem with the educational system is to focus on motivating students to fulfill their maximum potential. They could use patriotism and competitiveness to do this by motivating students to try and outperform other countries. The students of the United States need a reason to perform and to study as hard as they can. Now that you're aware of the problem with the education system and how to reduce them, we can all try to push the government towards the correct path to making changes. Our government needs to be held accountable for the way they treat the educational system and how they push it aside, and how they allow other sectors to be of more importance. I told you today about the problems with the educational system, the reasons why we have those problems, and then some compromises we can make to help provide a solution. Now, I hope that at the end of this speech, you guys have learned something about educational system in America, and you're inspired to go out there and push for change and push the government to put more funding onto the educational sector. And I know that we can make a difference slowly and surely, and we can provide a better educational system for future generations that allows them to grow and receive a better education. Thank you for watching.